This is Land of Havilah, Psalm 5, 12 verses in all. Verse 1. For the chief musician with the flutes, a psalm by David. Give ear to my words, Yahweh, consider my meditation. Listen to the voice of my cry, my King and my God, for to you do I pray. Yahweh, in the morning you shall hear my voice. In the morning I will lay my requests before you and will watch expectantly. For you are not a God who has pleasure in wickedness. Evil can't live with you. The arrogant shall not stand in your sight. You hate all workers of iniquity. You'll destroy those who speak lies. Yahweh abhors the bloodthirsty and deceitful man. But as for me, in the abundance of your loving kindness I'll come into your house. I'll bow toward your holy temple in reverence of you. Lead me, Yahweh, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before my face. For there's no faithfulness in their mouth. Their heart is destruction. Their throat is an open tomb. They flatter with their tongue. Hold them guilty, God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Thrust them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they've rebelled against you. But let all those who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them always shout for joy because you defend them. Let them also who love your name be joyful in you. For you'll bless the righteous. Yahweh, you'll surround him with favor as with a shield. Comment, this psalm is a prayer all the way through. In verse 3, David says, In the morning I'll lay my request before you and will watch expectantly. He prayed first thing in the day, and as he went through the day, he watched for answers. So he went through his whole day with God on his mind. In verses 4 to 6, no one should expect any answers if they're wicked, evil, arrogant, lying, bloodthirsty, or deceitful. In verse 4, there's an explanation of why we won't enter heaven unless we're washed completely clean. David says, No evil can live with you, end quote. Speaking of the gates of the New Jerusalem in Revelation 21:27, there will in no way enter into it anything profane, end quote. No evil can live with him. In verse 7, David knows he doesn't qualify to enter the house of God except through God's abundant loving kindness, quote. In the abundance of your loving kindness I'll come into your house, end quote. He can't enter on the basis of his righteousness. He can only enter because of God's loving kindness. In verse 8 he says, Lead me in your righteousness because of my enemies and make your way straight before my face, meaning show me clearly how to negotiate my way through this opposition. Open up the way for me to walk in your will. We might get the picture here of a man leading an animal by the bridle through a hostile crowd. The man not only guides the animal but opens the way for him. So God guides us and opens the way for us through our enemies. In verse 9, David's enemies aren't openly hostile. They pretend to be his faithful friends. Their compliments are only deceitful flattery. In verse 10, David prays what's known as an imprecatory prayer, which is a prayer calling down condemnation or even violence on someone. Imprecatory prayers are common in the Psalms, but they're always in the spirit and purpose of restraining evil. In verse 11, negativity and pessimism arise from unbelief and lack of faith. If a person takes refuge in God and loves him, he can rejoice and shout for joy in every situation. If we're negative or pessimistic in any way, we should repent. There's no such thing as faith and pessimism at the same time. They're incompatible. How can pessimism and faith in God coexist? It's impossible. Faith is positivity and optimism. Unbelief is negativity and pessimism. We can't have both at the same time. David was oftentimes negative at the beginning of a psalm, but by the end of it, he always expressed faith in God and was positive. It's a sin to stay pessimistic. In verse 12, you'll surround the righteous with favor as with a shield. Psalm 6 is next.